Hi and welcome to Positively Sparking, podcasts on internet marketing, online business, entrepreneurship and digital living. Today I'm with Matthew Spurr, co-founder of Q, an app which provides content suggestions to social media feeds. We chat with Matt about how Q has gone from idea to one of the fastest growing social media tools in just 12 months. So hey Matt, how are you?
I'm good, thanks Phil. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's good to have you here. You're the first real startup app I think we've had on the podcast. So
Very honoured.
You're paving the way for future podcasts, perhaps.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So Matt, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I'm based in Plymouth. I am the co-founder of a startup called Q, which provides content suggestions for social media. And I'm the COO. We started about a year ago. We started actually in October last year, and things are going really well so far. It's nice to have the opportunity to talk about it a bit more on a podcast like yours.
Fantastic. So Q is a really good looking app to me. I know I was quite quick to sign up and have a go when I saw it promoted. I think it was through AppSumo where I first encountered it. Right. But it has two halves, doesn't it? It has the curation side and the promotion side. So just tell us a bit about those two and the two aspects to what it offers.
It does. I mean, it wasn't always the case that there were two halves to it, actually. When we launched, the idea was simply to provide content suggestions for people that wanted to have a presence on social media. They wanted to have an active profile, but they didn't either have the time to find that content and schedule it, or they may have just not known really what to say. So we wanted to provide that service first and foremost, but then there later became the sort of predicament of, well, where do we get this content from? So the way we started that was we reached out to a select group of curators who essentially they're bloggers and columnists, authors, just subject matter experts. And they would help us find content that they deemed to be relevant, high quality, and just basically engaging content that people could share on social media. And they would send that to us to review, and then we would open that up to our users to share as a content suggestion. But sort of several months down the line, and we were getting lots of our users who were sharing the content saying, well, I'd like to add my article to Q as well to be shared. So it was like, well, okay, fair enough. Obviously, our content, our curators aren't going to be able to pick all the content that's out there that's most engaging. It makes sense if we open this up to the public at large. But the more we did this, the more we realized, well, we're spending a lot of time here, sort of hand reviewing and reading and proofreading everybody's submissions. Why don't we sort of turn this into almost like an app in its own right? And so when 2016 came around, we actually released a beta version of Qpromote, where anybody, a content creator, can add content to Q to be shared by a relevant audience to a relevant audience. So we've got two sides to Q now. We've got the normal Q.co service where you can share content suggestions, and then on the other side, if you create content, if you've got your own blog, you can visit Qpromote and actually have your content shared by people that actually have signed up to share content suggestions about your subject matter. So it's they work together nicely.
A great blend of options.
Yeah.
And it's great that one came from the other. So you started off with this concept of curation and helping people with that aspect of their promotion. And out of that came the other side. So how does the tool split? I mean, what percentage of users are curation only, and what percentage would use both?
It's about, at the moment, 80-20. There's about 80% of people sharing content suggestions, and probably about 20% who are contributing content to be shared. We're trying to grow them both together simultaneously and not really give one more emphasis than the other. They just need to work hand in hand as seamlessly as possible, I guess.
Sure. So they're both part of your plans, and you put equal faith and resource into both moving forward.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got big plans for development on both sides. We're still very much a new company, really, but we've come a long way from the the MVP that we launched just over a year ago.
And just for our listeners who've never done an MVP before, could you just explain what that is, Matt?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. So an MVP is your minimum viable product, and that's when you've come up with your concept, and you may have a sort of hashed together business plan, but you really want to take the idea to market as soon as possible to get some feedback for whether your idea actually has some legs and people want to use it. So what you do is you create the most basic version of that idea, that concept, and then you put it available on the web for everyone to use, and hopefully you get some early adopters come along and they say this is great or this needs improving. So it's just a way of really getting some quite targeted feedback early on from early adopters.
And that was a great intro into my next question, which was, where did it all begin? So just tell us a bit about how you went from an initial idea to that first MVP launch.
It's quite funny, actually. The initial idea came from Dan, the founder and CEO of the company, who's based down in Plymouth, nearer to you, Phil. And Dan's an incredible entrepreneur. Me and him have worked together for several years now on various startup concepts and agencies. We had a branding and marketing agency before we started Q. And he sends me about 10 business concepts a day, and I'm not joking. And I can't reply to them all. And Q was nestled in amongst our many Slack chats as one of these ideas, and he still gives me stick about the fact that I didn't get back to him straight away on it. But he came up with this idea because he was trying to think of an idea he could do with his wife, and he said, well, look, I've been looking into the fact that content marketing is going to become a huge thing in 2016. What about a platform where people that want to share more content but don't know where to go can come and pick content that's relevant to their interests? And then we get that content from people that just want more people to share it. And I think the reaction from his wife was something, I'm paraphrasing here, but something along the lines of, that sounds like a load of rubbish. And anyway, when me and Dan finally came around to actually discussing this on a call, at the time I was the director of marketing for two business exhibitions, a legal exhibition and an accountancy exhibition in London. And I was spending approximately 2 to 2.5, 3 hours every morning trying to find just 4 posts for each show that I could schedule to go out on each company's Twitter account and LinkedIn account every day. And it was hard because you'd read something and maybe it mentions a competitor, or maybe it's just not quite interesting enough, or it was relevant half a year ago but not now. And then when you do find it, you've got to schedule it at the right times, and it just took time. So this idea is one of those things where you think, well, I would use this now if this were available. And so we started to look, and there was nothing out there that was the same. And we basically decided that we were going to create an MVP. And Dan knows a lot of people from his networking and various Slack communities online. And he reached out to a very talented developer called Mubashar Iqbal, who we call Mubs. And seemingly over the course of a weekend, they built the MVP version of Q. And so from a concept, we had this minimum viable product which people could actually use, and we started to add a handful of content to it and test if it worked and if it sent articles to people's social media correctly, and it did. And we decided to put it on beta list, which I'm sure you've heard of. It's basically somewhere where you can list your business idea, and people give you feedback in the form of upvotes and comments. And I think we basically got about 350 signups from that initial listing. And from that we decided that we needed some investment, so we went and got a very modest round of seed investment on the basis that we had an MVP and a few hundred signups, and I think somebody had spent $10 on it. We were very excited by that.
The sign of a commercial potential.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, Matt, you're sharing some really good things there. So I just want to go over a couple of things you said. So the first one is about teams. Yeah. So it sounds to me that you and Dan make a great team. And, one thing I've discovered in my life is it's great to work with people who are very different to you than it is very similar. And it sounds potentially like Dan is the source of seed ideas, and you might be the man that can take an idea and shape it into something going forward. And that's where teams become really important, because we all have different strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. And generally speaking, no one is perfect. No one has every gift on the planet. So the more we realize what our strengths are and our weaknesses are, the better and easier it is for us to work with people who can complement what we're about. So I think that's the first point I want to make there. And the second one is how fast you went to an MVP. So from that initial idea to working across the weekend with your very talented developer, you have something ready to test. Yeah. One great and fantastic thing about the online world is its ability for us to put something out there so quickly. It doesn't have to be perfect, as you said, and maybe one area in which technology companies and software companies like you are a little bit perhaps more open-minded than traditional business is in how they're willing to put something out there that they know isn't perfect and see what happens.
Absolutely. I think it's really important actually to refining that concept very early on. I can't remember exactly who it was that said this, and again I'm paraphrasing, but I think it was probably one of the large Silicon Valley VCs like Peter Thiel, who said that if you're not truly embarrassed of your beta, then it's probably not it's not really at beta stage. So you actually need to sort of send something out before you're truly happy with it, and just let the public at large say to you, this is what they want it to be. It's the perfect opportunity to actually have people tell you what they want this product to be. So it's, I think that's definitely important. And obviously that's a controversial way of doing things, because traditionally, if you go along the normal route of going through building a business plan and then maybe getting some consensus from surveys before you even think about approaching anyone or taking it to market, it can take months and months and months. Whereas this can take 2 days, and you've got a product that people are saying, yes, I'd pay money to use this. Like you say, the online world's just incredible. It's transformed the way we do business. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And Matt, I've even seen quite recently some writers doing the same thing. So they will start a novel and they'll put a couple of chapters up on something like Wattpad, which is a kind of a sharing platform for writing, and people literally put up chapters at a time up onto the platform. And that does exactly the same thing. It lets their audience feed back onto what they like, what they don't like, and what they want to happen.
Absolutely brilliant. It's fantastic.
Definitely. So with the initial MVP, what happened next, and where did Q go from there?
As I said, we got some investment from a fund in London, which we were delighted about. It allowed me and Dan to focus on it full time. And at that stage, we were still really trying to form what the business was going to be, how the brand would take shape. And the business plan was like a work in progress, but we had a product out there, people were using it, and we had a very sort of primitive form of support. So after we'd made it a little bit more sophisticated, after maybe 2 months, we decided to launch on Product Hunt, which is a large community where people can list their early stage companies and products for people to vote on popularity wise. And we were amazed at the reaction. We were lucky enough to come first on the day that we were listed, and I think it ended up with us having something like 1,200 new users. So it was, in relative terms, absolutely colossal growth for us. But it was a lot more than that. It wasn't just users. It was all the feedback that we got in the comments that actually helped us really refine what we were trying to make the product. And then a load of really, really kind people last